Welcome to this week's test pilot. With the recent passing of Charles Chuck Yeager, I thought we'd have a look at a plane that is really synonymous with his legacy, which is the Bell X-1. Join us as we take some for a spin. Well, you find us first of all on the runway with the Bell X-1 from OlMuskiBoi, links down below. Now, the Bell X-1 didn't actually normally take off from the runway on its own. It was normally in a carrier plane. However, there is one time that this happened, and it was by none other than Chuck Yeager. And it was on the 5th of January 1949, and I believe it was actually part of a bet. There was an argument, I believe, between the Bell team and I believe the Navy at the time, who were also testing planes, and they'd been ribbing the Bell team about the fact that they had to use a carrier plane. So with some careful measuring of fuel and some back of the napkin calculations, the Bell team figured out they could probably get into the air, and so they did it. They did one flight like this with Yeager flying the craft. So let's see what this one's like. This is, as I said, the Bell X-1 from OlMuskiBoi. Let's give it a go. Engines on. Oh, it's noisy to take off, isn't it? Obviously, it is a rocket plane, so it's using fuel up quite considerably compared to a normal plane taking off from the runway. We're getting up a bit of speed. I do not see any taking off occurring yet, but we do have a lot of fuel and we're getting up some speed. I do not expect this craft to actually oh, this is going to take off badly, is it? To really... Oh, no, it is going to take off. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I don't expect it to really get up to much of a high speed because of the fact it's having to take up off the runway. But it's not doing badly. It's very noisy. I'm going to have to pull that volume down a bit in post, I think. It's very wobbly. I suppose we'll have to compare it to the others. But again, it's not really getting up to speed. Can we put away its landing gear at the front? I cannot retract. There we go. That may be a problem when we come into land. So we're flying along. We're getting reasonably fast right now. Obviously, the X-1 was not designed primarily for maneuverability, so we're not going to do too much running around with it and such. What we are going to do is just take it up a bit into the thinner atmosphere and see what it can do. Obviously, normally it would be dropped from a launch craft, and it would be a nice thinnish atmosphere, because being a rocket plane, the thickness of the atmosphere is actually a problem for it. It wants thin air, wants thin atmosphere, so it has less resistance. Down here in the soup is a lot harder for it. We've still got a lot of fuel left on this. It feels as though it's got a lot of extra fuel that it probably didn't need to have, or wouldn't have had. The XLR-11, I believe, was the engine that was used on the Bell X-1, and it had some interesting characteristics. It was actually sort of four thrust chambers combined, as you can see on this model, and this is actually quite a nice model. Interesting cockpit there, if we actually get a good look. Yeah, you've got the cockpit, which is actually made out of some tanks to make it look good. I'm not entirely sure where the Kerbal is inside. Is he inside? I think he's actually... Is that the cockpit? It's a Mark 1 command pod. He's actually in a command pod inside the body of the craft. That's quite interesting. Right. Now, the first flight of the X-1 didn't actually even use engines. It was actually a drop and glide test, and this was partly because, well, they wanted to make sure its glide characteristics were okay, because if you're going really fast and your engines stop working, which is what happens with a rocket plane, because they run out of fuel, you need to be able to glide. But also because the engines weren't ready, so they actually just wanted to start the developmental run as quickly as possible. Right, we're coming in. I'm actually gonna no, we're not gonna cut the power. We're gonna just do a flyby. I can see this craft is probably going to crash, because I am not going to be able to control it very well. So we're actually getting up there towards Mach 1 now, in Kerbal, I suppose that would be. Flying over the Space Center. Again, we would normally be doing this a lot higher up. And I'm actually going to I'm going to let the engines burn out. The craft itself is really nice, actually. I would say it's maybe not the most accurate of representations, but it's not a bad attempt in Kerbal. It takes off from the runway, which is nice. You could attach it to a carrier plane. The ones we've got coming are in carrier planes, so that's going to be a bit different. But let's see, does it, now obviously this is something you'd never do in the original Bell X-1, unless there was something going horribly wrong. Look at that. So it is, whoa, it is a very, it's got a lot of rolls to sort of control on it. That's quite interesting. Now we're getting really light. We've got a very light fuel load now, and we're actually getting really fast. So this is where we have to figure out how to land the thing. But now we're going the wrong way. So we're going to just take some height. We're going to do this, and we're losing speed all the way. So this thing, it'll be interesting to see how fast it slows down. Actually, it is losing speed quite considerably. Not the most streamlined of craft. So we're going to come down. We're not going to go and land on the runway because that leads to crazy. And I've just realised I put the front landing gear away, didn't I? So how do I find the front landing gear? Can I find the front landing gear? I can't find the front landing gear. Okay, this is a problem with this plane. There we go. It doesn't really have front landing gear. So we're going to go for rear skiddy landing. It's going to be, oh no, the runway is actually in the worst place possible for this because I actually don't want to hit it. So we're going to bleed off as much speed as possible. Pull us up. Oh, well, there we go. The Bell X-1 from OlMuskiBoi. Let's try something that maybe has a full set of landing gear next time. Welcome to the second of our little Bell X-1 recreations. This is the Bell X-1 launcher by Jet Quasar, link down below. You will see that we're not on the runway, we're actually flying in the air right now. In fact, we're losing a little bit of height, so let's put a bit of climb in there. And you'll see here we have the launcher, and underneath it, with its wings clipping out, we have what could be the Bell X-1. So we're going to, first of all, open the doors, and there we are, look at that, it's inside. The X-1 actually was slung underneath its carrier craft, not inside the payload doors like this. I don't believe. I'd have to go back and check. I believe it was actually just slung underneath. And they actually had a special pit design so that they could actually do that. And they'd wheel the carrier craft over the top, and then they would attach it. So let us see how this goes. We're going to drop away and see what happens. So off we go. Engines are on full. Oh, and we're away. Look at that, quick change. And yeah, so we've got one engine. So we've actually got some clipped engines going on here. We've actually got multiple engines, I think. Yeah, we've got 4 clipped engines in there to give it a bit more oomph. It has air brakes. Not entirely sure how they work or what the toggle is for them. So we'll just stick those over there. Because we started off higher up, obviously, we were already at a faster speed. We're actually about to break the speed of Mach 1, and we probably have actually. Does not look, I think, as much like the X-1 as the first craft we looked at. I think the nose is maybe a little bit off, possibly. But again, that's using stock parts. This is all stock, so it's not bad. So let's try and just do a turn. Let's head back to the KSC. I don't know if it's got landing. It looks like it has landing gear, so we should be able to, and we're just going to fly past our carrier craft there. In fact, we'll just do a little flyby. Oh, and we're gliding. Now, one of the problems with being at the KSC is that we are going to land in water, I've just realised, because we do not have enough speed or altitude to get us back, and that is important when you're gliding, is to actually have that combination of altitude. You've got a lot of altitude, you've in effect got energy, you've got speed. We do not have that. So yeah, the first Bell X-1 flight was without an engine, and it was basically just a drop test. They dropped it, they saw that it could land, and that was it. And they had to wait for the XLR-11 to actually be built so that they could actually install it. But of course, the Bell team, who were working for the Air Force at the time, I believe, they were basically in a race, because the I don't know if you're not American, I'm sure you don't understand the argument in between the forces, but the Navy was attempting to develop its own craft. Part of the reason why the X-1 was actually launched from a runway in the previous clip was because they were basically jibed into doing that by the Navy team. All of the work done on sort of the X-planes was also often paralleled by the Navy, and we'll get onto that later. So, for example, when they actually moved on to the Bell X-2 Starburst, there was competition between that and the Douglas D5582 Skyrocket, which actually resulted in something quite amusing, which we might get to later if we have time. So we're going to come in over the water. It's gliding reasonably well. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure I like its looks so much, because I don't think it feels, better pull up, it doesn't feel to me as much like an X1 instead of just an attempt at an X1. Oh dear. Oh well. So with that, I think we've still got a cockpit over there. Have we? Do we have? Oh, we have a cockpit. He has survived. So at least we landed safely. On to the next one. Welcome back to the skies around the Kerbal Space Center. So we are now watching the AMRSD Bell X-1 and B-29 by the Mad Rocket Scientist. Links down below. This B-29 actually looks quite a lot like a B-29. It has propeller bits that don't actually work, but anyway. I'm assuming with some of the breaking ground stuff you could actually have proper propellers on there, which would be really cool. The carrier craft looks a lot more like the actual correct carrier craft, like the B-29. You'll notice the X-1 is slung underneath, not inside a bay. Now, I will say taking off with this was, I haven't videoed it, but it was an absolute nightmare. I had to shut down both of the middle sets of engines, and there are actually 8 engines on those wings. It looks like there's 4. There's actually 2 in each one. There's some clipping going on. It was just careering all over the place because of airflow to one of the engines. So I had to shut down the pair in the middle. But it still takes off even with the outside pair, so that's good. So we're up at an okay altitude. I think we're going to go for a launch. So let's have a go. Off we go. So we're actually in this command pod. How wonderful. And we are going. We've got 3 Kerbals on board. So there's a degree of clipping there. I wonder whether it's for the reaction engines. We're getting up to speed. Now, the Bell X-1, piloted by Chuck Yeager, actually broke the sound barrier on the 14th of October 1957, and it was about a month after the US Air Force was actually created. This is actually quite a nice little plane. It's got sort of stubby-ish wings. We got up to a good speed. It's now gliding. I'm going to head back towards the KSC. Obviously, I'm flying over water. I should probably have changed to the different runways for this set of flights so that I could actually do the gliding landing. But at the time, all of this was done at Air Force bases that were pretty much desert land, and I think it was Murrock that they used a lot of. So they actually had massive runoff areas. So it's coming in. It's quite nose. It takes quite. Yeah, this is because it's now out of fuel. It feels very nose heavy. You could trim it. But it's actually being really problematic pulling up. And I don't think. Yeah. Oh well, we survived the landing. I will say, I think even if we were over land, I think that would have been difficult. I think its pitch authority is poor. You can actually see inside now. You can see all the bits of stuff in there and lots of part clipping. I think its pitch authority was poor. It looked nice, but there's a lot of part clipping going on there. And is it the best one we've seen today? Possibly not. Yeah, I still think the first one we saw was actually a nice looking craft, and I think combining that with this launcher would have been a really interesting thing to do. So let's move on to, I think, the final Bell X-1 that we have to look at. So you find me taking off from the runway. This is our final Bell X-1 to look at today. This is B-29 with Bell X-1 from MunbroKerman. Bit of a difficult takeoff there, but it's, yeah, I wasn't watching properly. Big engines. You see it's got fake propeller on the front again because this is the B-29 and it was a propeller-driven plane. Pull the undercarriage in. It's actually quite a nice design, very similar to the last one we looked at in the styling, and I think people have done really well with the styling of the B-29. You can see again we have slung underneath with that sort of opened section in the hull almost, pushed out the X-1, and this looks like it could be a really nice looking little craft. It is unpiloted. Both of these crafts are unpiloted. So one of the big problems with this sort of concept in Kerbal, unless you add in a mod that allows you to basically recover spent stages or something like that, if you have a set of pilots in your carrier craft, you're going to lose them because it's going to fly out of range unless you're really quick at landing. In the second craft we launched, I actually went back to the tracking station. I was still able to actually get control of the craft, and I could have brought it back. I actually just terminated its flight, but I could have brought it back, which I think would have been quite fun. So we're going to turn this round. The B-29 was not renowned for its maneuverability, but this thing has a lot of maneuverability. We're going to turn it around, face the runway, and as soon as I've got it semi-level, we will let go of the X-1. So, ready? Now, normally, obviously, this would be done a lot higher, but let's go. Change over, fire those engines. Oh, there we go. Now, this is interesting because I believe I have to go inside to find a probe core somewhere. There is a probe core, I believe. Ah, there it is. That's better. So one of the things you'll find is that it actually is set to a random probe core that is not the one you want. It's very maneuverable, actually. It's very nice. It's quite twitchy. Obviously, we're getting up to speed already. We've got the little engines burning away. We have 2 of them, I believe, or 4 or 8. I think there's 8 engines there, is there? 1, 2, or 2? Oh, it seems to suggest that there are, I think, 8 engines in there, but I can't look at them individually. They're obviously clipped through each other. So we're going pretty high and pretty fast. Let's go level flight, see how fast it can go. It is a little twitchy. I actually really like this. This looks, I think, really good. It's very similar to the first one we looked at. It took off from the runway. Do we have gears? We do have landing gear. I shouldn't pull them down while we're going so fast. Okay, I like this craft. This, I think, is possibly the best that we've seen today. I like it a lot. So let's see if we can actually land this. Flying over the horizons and so forth. Lovely. Look at the clouds. It's beautiful. I am going to do a little bit of a... Okay. Right. Okay. That's interesting. Oh, it just flipped completely out there. That was really interesting. So don't move too quickly because it will lose control. Right. We're going to do a bit of a bank. Now I'm going to be careful now because that lost us a lot of speed very quickly. Whoa, I know I'm being rough with it. I shouldn't be. Let it restabilize. Let it stabilize. Okay, it looks lovely, but it flies really badly when it's got no thrust. Oh, I'm in a flat spin. We're in it. Are we? Now, Jaeger himself actually ended up in some really interesting positions. I believe when he was flying was it the X-1? I think it might have been the X-2. He got into a spin similar to this. Lost a lot of airspeed. And in doing so... I think he lost sort of, was it like 30,000 feet in the space of 10 seconds or something stupid like that. Basically, he should have died and managed to pull out of it amazingly. Other pilots were not as lucky in the X-Plane series, and there were some catastrophes, unfortunately. Come on, get it under. I'm falling like a brick here. I think we're going to be hitting the ground. I do think we're going to be hitting the ground because I can't get the nose down to get onto the... It wants to fly backwards, which is really odd. I wonder whether it may have some aerodynamic sort of components at the wrong end. I don't know. Come on, nose down. See, what I'm trying to do is actually stop it. No, go back the other way. I want to get my nose in line with the direction of travel. So basically, I'm trying to get my nose down now because I need to get some sort of control through my... aerofoils. What if we do that? What if we just spin it all over and then do that? Oh, no. Come on, turn out of it. Come on. I think this is a lost cause. Oh, this is a bad ending. So if you do fly with this, I wonder if we just put the gears out. We may actually just land really slowly. I'm actually, what you can't see is, I don't actually see where right, so the control plate surfaces are actually in the wings. Yeah, we're actually drifting down at a reasonably slow speed. I think we're definitely gonna crash. I mean, there's no debate about it. There's no coming out of this right now. But if I'm really lucky, I time this just right, and I'm fighting really hard about this. Come on, flat spinish almost onto the wheels. Come on, no, get down on the wheels. No. Hey. Well, I think that could have gone better, but it also could have gone really worse. So there's a tree there. That's nice. So the B29 with Bell X1 by MunbroKerman. Give it a go. It looks lovely. Maybe get hold of the Bell X1 from OlMuskiBoi and put the two of them together. Maybe it would be a good idea. That's potentially something I might do. But anyway, from me, have a great one. Until next time.